Horror movies have been around for more than 100 years. In that century, we've had so many villains and monsters. It takes a lot to stand out from such a very large crowd. While he's not my favorite, that title belongs to Jason Voorhees, you'd be foolish to not have Michael Myers near the top of your list of most important horror icons. Halloween wasn't the first slasher, but it brought the genre to the mainstream and directly inspired Friday the 13th. So anytime there's a new Halloween movie, it's a big deal, even if it's the Rob Zombie version. So I would be remiss if I didn't review Halloween Kills. We pick up directly after the events of the previous movie. Laurie and her family are driving to the hospital to get help. While on the way, they drive past a fleet of fire trucks coming to put out the house fire designed to be Michael's grave. Michael escapes, dropping a whole lot of bodies in the process. After that, we meet a lot of Michael's earlier survivors. There's Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace, the kids Laurie was babysitting in 1978, Marion, the nurse who Michael stole the car from in the first movie, and Lonnie Elam, the kid from the original who was hanging around the Myers house and got yelled at by Dr. Loomis. They learn about Michael's return and they get a lynch mob to track him down and kill him once and for all. They must say the phrase "evil dies tonight" about 1,000 times in this movie. We also get flashbacks to 1978 and they once again go out of their way to say Michael was a weirdo as a child. One of the officers tracking him down says he used to have forced playdates with Michael. He said Michael wouldn't do anything, he'd just stare out the window of his sister's bedroom. I mean, it's better than making him the product of every white trash cliche, but making him a perfectly normal kid who one day snaps is so much better than making him a creepy kid right from the jump. Why do movies keep doing this? Stop trying to explain Michael Myers. Let him be this force of evil that we have no idea what he's about. Anyways, let me talk about the stuff I liked first, because there's a lot less to say. I loved how Michael Myers doesn't care at all about Laurie. He sent her down a path of obsession and he probably doesn't even know she exists. For Laurie, the night he came home was really the most important day of her life. But for Michael, it was Tuesday. As an aside, after looking up and seeing October 31st, 1978 actually took place on a Tuesday, I had to use that line. There's a scene later where some kids are playing on a swing set and they're completely oblivious to what's going on around them. While Lindsay is desperately trying to get them to leave, they brush her off, assuming she's like the guy in the white mask who keeps popping out of the woods. I got chills at that moment. Then one of the kids says, "See, there he is." And the camera cuts to show Michael in the distance, and it's just wonderfully done. I also liked how they brought back so many characters from Michael's past. 2 of them were replaced by different actors. As much as I love Paul Rudd, he's way too likable for this PTSD version of Tommy Doyle. But I don't think their inclusion had much of a plan other than to have Michael mow down his earlier survivors. The purpose of this movie was body count and not much else. Those are the only things I liked. Let's start at the beginning. Halloween Kills is one of the worst movie titles I've ever heard. It's just so painfully generic. Moving on, a big problem I have with the 2018 version is overkill here. Michael is just too front and center. It's in the trailers, but still, I rolled my eyes hard when Michael emerges from the burning house like he's the Undertaker. Then it gets even worse. There's about 10 firefighters who know Michael killed 2 of their brothers, and they all decide to attack Michael. One at a time. All of them, armed with axes and another with a saw, patiently wait for Michael to murder one of their friends before jumping in to help. To make matters worse, Halloween Kills does this twice. Another massive problem with this movie is I didn't find it scary. In my opinion, what makes Michael such an effective monster is how he stalks his prey. You watch the original and he could be anywhere. There are times where you have a seemingly normal moment, but Michael is creeping somewhere in the background. Like, if you're not paying attention, you may not even notice because the movie doesn't draw attention to it. But in this one, you always know where Michael is. Sure, you don't know his exact location, but you know what building he's in. It makes the tense moments less scary because you're not wondering, is Michael in there? You're just waiting for him to pop out of somewhere. Halloween Kills also relishes in my most least favorite horror movie trope. Multiple times in this movie, they have Michael dead to rights, and instead of doing something to make sure he stays down, they leave him alone, assuming he won't get back up again. I suspect a lot of the brainstorming sessions started with, wouldn't it be cool if, and no one would ask any follow-up questions before everyone just agreed. Now let's talk about the ending. And I'll keep it generic enough to avoid spoilers, but we all know there's a third movie coming out, so it's not a spoiler to say Michael doesn't die. Karen lures Michael to a trap, and I have to say, it's actually pretty awesome. Like, I could feel some of the catharsis that these characters were feeling, and I loved it, truly. But then they go and ruin it. We cut to Jamie Lee Curtis waxing poetic about Michael, and she just comes to the conclusion somehow that Michael feeds off fear, and every time he kills someone, he gets stronger. Really? That's how you explain Michael? You just have Laurie, who realized she's been wrong about Michael for the past 40 years, all of a sudden explaining that he has Freddy Krueger's powers except the ability to control dreams. Look, I get people didn't like the Curse of Thorns stuff, but it's better than this. Then when Michael turns the table, I wanted to turn the movie off. But thankfully I didn't, so I could get treated to an even worse ending. There are a lot of things I didn't like, but this has been going on a bit long, so let me quickly gloss over some things. Anyone holding a gun is an idiot in this movie. They all ignore the advantage a gun brings, and for starters, they make sure they're in grabbing range before they fire. They miss at point-blank range, they waste all their ammo. They don't put a few rounds in Michael while he's on the ground, and finally, they manage the most annoying death in the entire series. I threw my arms up in frustration at one point because it was just so dumb. Finally, Michael's not Jason. Stop trying to make him Jason. Michael Myers is a badass when he's being Michael. Seeing him laying waste to groups of people and then shrug off everything isn't what made the character great. I didn't like this movie, and I have little hope for Halloween Ends. I read an interview with David Gordon Green talking about the final installment, and it leaves me less than enthused. It's going to take place 4 years after this one, so he says it's going to include the pandemic and what he calls the peculiar politics of today. Which, hooray! Because if this is what they do with something as straightforward as Michael Myers, I cannot wait for their take on the pandemic and 2020 politics. 2.5 Dr. Chainsaws.